Hi everyone, this is part 1 of our persuasive writing package. We hope that you enjoy and benefit from this. There are 5 parts to this module. First, the overview. Second, structure. Third, language features and hedging. Fourth, types of supporting material. And lastly, checklist and the idea map. Today, we will start with an overview. Today's contents will be on the intention. Why do we want to write a persuasive essay? What is the difference between persuasive and argumentative writing? How to recognize a persuasive essay? How to dissect and break down the persuasive question? Lastly, we learn about the structure and the features of the persuasive essay. Okay, now intention. Why write a persuasive essay? The answer is very simple. Usually, we want to persuade others to do something for us, or we want to convince others of our viewpoint. Now, what is the difference between persuasive and argumentative writing? Generally speaking, persuasive essays are those that use emotions to influence others to take our stand. Argumentative essays, on the other hand, use logic and evidences to prove to others that we are right. Therefore, in persuasive essays, emotive language is key, while in argumentative essays, data, examples, anecdotes, testimonies, and experiences are more important because they appeal to the logical mind. Persuasive essays do not need to consider the counter-argument, but the argumentative essay would need to weigh the counter-argument. However, for our learning here, we will fuse features of both genres and call it persuasive writing, because our emphasis is on using emotive language to persuade others. Now, recognition. How do we recognize a persuasive title? Overall, we look for words that indicate a strong position or a one-sided opinion. For example, modal verbs like should, must, ought to. Quantifiers like all, every, any, only, or too much. Adverbs of frequency like always and never. Comparatives and superlatives like more, most, or best. Absolute and strong terms like liability, offense, wrong, right. And lastly, the question stem of do you agree? Here are more examples. Men are always right. All women should serve in the army. Friends, rather than family, are the most important people in the lives of teenagers. Do you agree? Children learn best from positive examples. What are your views? Experience in a job is more important than paper qualifications. Do you agree? Now, titles with such words are often one-sided and strong, thus compelling one to take a stand for ourselves. And there you go, is the birth of a persuasive essay. Now, we've come to dissection, how to make sense of the persuasive title. Here's an example. Females should serve national service. First, we look out for topic words, words that tell us what the issue is all about. Yes, you are right. You should have females and national service. Next, look out for task words. What are we supposed to do in this essay? Here, we are supposed to decide, should they or should they not serve? Next, look out for contextual words. Here, national service tells us this essay is about Singapore at the national level. Lastly, scoping. When we scope, we decide what and how much to write, or we set the boundaries of our essay. Do we write about a local issue, an international concern? Do we write about people who are young or old or everyone? Do we write about people in the past or present? In other words, we set the boundaries of our essay. We decide who, when, and where we write about. The structure of a persuasive essay. In the introduction, we should take a stand. Do we agree or disagree with the statement in the essay title? Preferably, we should also introduce our three main arguments. Now, in the body, we present these arguments with evidences, examples, and experiences. Counter-argument. Although optional, it is recommended that we present an opposing view. However, please be careful not to end the paragraph by supporting this opposing view. You have to support your own stand by saying that the opposing view, although valid, does not apply to the majority, or it is not true most of the time. Lastly, the conclusion. You have to reiterate your stand by summarizing your main arguments. Let's take a closer look at the introduction. It should consist of a first liner, development, and the thesis statement. There are four ways to write our first liner. We could give a definition of the keywords. We could also ask rhetorical or general questions. We could give a quote, or we could set the topic in a context that piques the interest of the reader. We call that the association. After that, we move on to development. In development, we explain the definition and the quotation, or we answer the question we asked earlier. Then we give a preview of our main arguments. Lastly, we end the introduction by stating our stand very clearly. Okay, let's take a look at the four ways we can write our first liners. First is the definition. It tells us what national service is all about in Singapore. Secondly, a rhetorical question. The writer asks why the duty to serve the national service should fall on the shoulders of Singaporean men alone. This indicates to us that the writer thinks that maybe women should serve also. Third is an example of a great quote from Winston Churchill. The quote talks about responsibility. So maybe the writer thinks both men and women should share the responsibility of serving the nation. Lastly, by bringing in mothers worrying over their teenage son's impending enlistment in the national service, this tells us that the essay is meaningful and relevant to many Singaporeans, and this is association. Here is a sample introduction. We first start with a definition that national service is an important part of total defense in Singapore. Then we further associate that all citizens should share the responsibility to support this aspect of total defense. Then we further develop that it is no surprise that the call for females to perform NS duties has surfaced every now and then. Lastly, we end with the statement that we believe that females should serve the national service. And this is our thesis statement. Moving on from the introduction, we now look at the body of arguments. Each argument should start in a new paragraph, and each paragraph should start with a topic sentence. The topic sentence states the main point of our argument, followed by an explanation, examples, evidences, and experiences, and lastly, a summary statement, which states why the main point is valid. The acronym to remember would be TEASE. Here is an example of an argument. Let's look at the topic sentence. It tells us that the main point of this argument is about Singapore's aging population. We go on to explain. Now, what will happen when the population ages? We have less young adults. What happens if we have less young adults? If we only select males for national service, we have an even smaller pool of human resources. Then we give further evidences, examples, and experiences to support our point. Lastly, we show the link between an aging population and the need for females to serve NS. Finally, we have come to a conclusion. In our conclusion, we reiterate our stand or we summarize our main arguments. We also try to end with something that will be memorable in the reader's mind. An idiomatic phrase or a good quote would do the trick. Lastly, we also offer a potential solution or perspective for the future. We've come to the last segment, language features of a persuasive essay. First, present tense. Always use the present tense when you're talking about things that are still true. Connectors. As a result, therefore, these connectors are important as they sequence and build up arguments. Modal verbs. Modal verbs that indicate certainty and insistence are very important in persuasive essays. Would, should, must, and ought to are some examples. Lastly, emotive expressions. Expressions that indicate belief. I strongly believe or I strongly argue. Exhortation. I urge, I beseech everyone. Perception. It seems. And emotive language. It's downright disgraceful. What a tragedy. Such emotive expressions are critical in influencing your readers. We have come to the end of part 1. Now look out for part 2.